each one of those guys that are gone now was a character within himself.
Benny Benjamin, James Jamerson, Eddie Bongo Brown, Earl Van Dyke, Robert White, Richard Pistol Allen, and Johnny Griffith. These are the Funk Brothers no longer with us, the missing beats in the greatest hit machine in musical history.
Knowing those guys it was something special in my life.
Over 30 years before their film tribute, Benny Papa Zeta Benjamin was the first of the Funk Brothers to pass away. By the time he played his last beats in 1968, he was already considered a genius, the very backbeat of the Motown sound.
We had many gifted drummers and percussionists at Studio A. All of them would have to agree the undisputed king of rhythm was Benny Benjamin. Anytime Benny was on the set, 9 times out of 10, we knew it was going to be a hit.
The talent he had, I tried to almost clone Benny. You know, I studied him so hard.
But Benny's musical gift came with a heavy price, a lifelong addiction to alcohol and drugs.
If we can keep him on the bandstand, which sometimes we can't, he's out chasing corn liquor.
But he could play high. He could play high better than some of these guys can play that ain't high.
Benny's explosive drum sound defined Motown, and his dynamic personality earned him the love of the other brothers. But the glory and the recognition of his genius would be in a future he wasn't destined to see.
That was back in the beginning days when the money wasn't as plentiful. You know, recognition was non-existent. And a man with his talent, I can understand the frustration that he had.
In the late 60s, before he had reached the age of 40, Benny Benjamin's addictions took his life. In the heyday of the Motown hit machine, Studio A's core beat was silenced.
Now that's the guy that you had mixed emotions about. He'd get on your nerve, he'd worry you to death, but he was a well-loved guy. If you talk to Benny Benjamin a little while, you'll love him.
Equally esteemed for his maverick talent was virtuoso bassist James Jamerson.
James Jamerson, in one word, a genius.
Jamerson's intricate licks were revolutionary. They laid the foundation for the Motown sound and influenced generations of bassists. His talents were so vast, he humbled the very Funk Brothers themselves.
When I first played with Jamerson, I thought we were accompanying him. Everything was like a bass solo, and we played for him.
When we played, Benny hit a groove, I hit a groove, Jamerson was grooving, and I said he's a genius.
But Jamerson shared another similarity to his percussionist counterpart, Benny Benjamin, a self-destructive addiction to alcohol.
Eddie and I went to see James when he was sick. I felt so bad because he was lying in bed, and Eddie Bongo, he came over to me and said, man, this guy's not gonna live past tomorrow.
Eddie's predictions were correct. Never recognized for his true genius and ravaged by alcohol, James Jamerson was a shell of his former self.
He managed to get out of the bed, and grab me, and hug me and cry. I'll never forget this, And he said he wanted me to give him some money, to get him something to eat. Well, I knew better. See, I was saying he wanted that last drink, man. Like I said, I'll buy you all the food you want. You can eat right here, but I'm not gonna give you any money. But he understood. I got home the next day, and I got the call that he had passed.
James Jamerson may have had demons, but he also had dreams, to be a great musician. He was more than that. In his short life, in addition to making dear friends and being a founding Funk brother, he was a one-man musical legend.
Jamerson just was a guy that loved life, loved living to its fullest. That's the kind of guy he was. And he didn't know he was a genius. Had not a clue that he was a genius.
1983, the same year that James Jamerson died, also marked the loss of another Funk brother, the group's comedian, Eddie Bongo Brown.
Bongo could imitate anybody in the band. He'd get our walk, our mannerisms, and he was a funny guy. He was beautiful.
Clown of the whole bunch. He was the clown. He was definitely a clown, His jokes, his talking about people's mama.
Eddie originally worked as Marvin Gaye's valet. but eventually drummed his way into Studio A with his original conga grooves. His uncanny ability to break the tension of long, exhausting recording sessions won him the love of his fellow funks.
Bongo was a very affable person, full of life, very effervescent, but he had his weaknesses like we all have.
Eddie Bongo Brown headed out to LA in the mid-70s, hoping to build on his career. But like many of the funks trying to recapture Motown's glory, his most successful days were behind him, lost deep in the grooves of the gold records he helped craft.
I would say that you're not here, but the guys that are left here are going to do the best that we can to make the world know that you were there.
1, 2, 3.
In 1986, Alan Slutsky began his crusade to make the Funk Brothers movie. As much as he was battling their anonymity, he was also battling time.
I've been fighting a biological time clock for 16 years. And when I first started out, we had 10 of the original 13 Funk Brothers here.
But sadly, not all 10 would live to walk the red carpet at the premiere of Standing in the Shadows of Motown. The next funk brother to pass on was Earl Van Dyke, the passionate keyboardist who had earned the highest respect among the Funk Brothers.
We didn't have what you call a band leader in the studio, but everybody kind of looked up to him. Like they said, he was a leader.
When the session was really on the line, the producers, songwriters, and the musicians looked to Earl.
A forceful pianist who played on such hits as Ain't Too Proud to Beg and My Guy, Van Dyke earned the nickname Chunk of Funk. But his ability to corral the funks, especially the elusive Benny Benjamin and James Jamerson, also earned him the gratitude of Motown's management.
Because me and Earl was in the service, before we even came to Motown. I already knew Earl Van Dyke in 1946. And he inspired me to want to be better.
He found out earlier that he had cancer, and he rode it out for some time.
Earl Van Dyke's death in 1992 was a big loss for the Funk Brothers. They had lost their leader and friend, knowing now that he wouldn't be able to take part in the film that would celebrate the Funk Brothers' lives.
I took Van Dyke, just like he was a father to me. He's very, very loving guy, man, and you can't help but to return it.
Yet one more Funk brother would pass on before the production of the film began. Guitarist Robert White, seen in this 1993 interview.
I was just so delighted to do my passion and get paid for it.
Oh, my buddy Robert sat next to him numerous amount of times. Yeah, we miss him.
Amid volatile personalities like Jamerson and Benjamin, Robert White was a disciplined individual. His relaxed guitar strums melded perfectly with his personal quest for higher spirituality.
White, he's classy. He's classy, he's Juilliard, whatever you might want to say, He didn't clown around too much.
Although he didn't get to participate in the filming of the movie, by the time Robert White died in 1994, he at least knew the film was becoming a reality, that all his hard work would be documented in a major motion picture celebrating his mastery.
It's just a delight that someone has taken an interest to introduce us as individuals to our fans. Finally, people are going to see who we really are.
In the winter of 2000, filming of Standing in the Shadows of Motown began. One of the founding drummers of the Funks, Richard Pistol Allen, was already very sick at the time, yet overjoyed that he had survived long enough to see the tribute film come together.
Pistol, that was my heart. Yeah, we were so close together. Very beautiful guy, talent guy.
Pistol was a kind person. He's a friendly person, a warm person.
When Earl passed away, we were all sitting around a table. Pistol was sitting to the left of me, and he kissed me on the cheek. And I can never forget that. Never.
In this rare footage of that 1994 wake, Pistol talks about the subtle differences in the drumming styles of the Motown percussionists.
To identify the drummers down in Motown, to identify you got to hear, and identify Benny, that thing. Identify me, simple. That's Motown.
The chatty, well-loved drummer Styx was silenced in June of 2002, but not until after filming of the movie was complete. He went with the satisfaction of knowing he would finally be immortalized.
He was sick through the whole filming, and he just, if you look at him on the film, he was in heaven. He was in heaven already.
In November of 2002, Standing in the Shadows of Motown was released. After all the years, all the hits, the surviving Funk Brothers basked in the glory of fame and recognition. No one enjoyed it more than keyboardist Johnny Griffith.
There's a lot of love between me and the guys. When Al came up with the idea and said, it's going to happen, I said, well, you count me in.
Along with the remaining Funk Brothers, Johnny attended the premieres and the concerts, thrilled at the rush of fame hitting him so late in life. But then, in the middle of the celebration, tragedy struck.
We were in Detroit. I was getting ready for the premiere.
He was not feeling well for a while.
I think Jack called me about 11 o'clock Sunday morning. He was on the way to the hospital. And I said, is he okay? And he said, no, he's passed away.
Well, I didn't say nothing for 3 or 4 minutes, just thinking, you know, could it be a mistake? And then I knew Johnny was sick.
It was so quick, you still, I can't believe it. I can't comprehend that he's gone.
Like, you know, like tonight, we talking and laughing and everything. We getting up in the morning to go do a shoot, and Johnny can't come. Johnny's no longer with us.
It was just weeks before, as the Funk Brothers dined, readying for the release of the film, that they speculated on such a loss. Now the unthinkable had happened.
I don't know. I would feel worse than I ever did in my life if something would happen to one of the rest of the guys right now. But I don't think I could handle it.
I'm sure Johnny would want us to go on.
We want him to know that he's right there with us.
And we don't control anything. Our fates are in the hands of someone else. And that we'll carry on the name of the Funk Brothers, because he said, I'm a Funk Brother forever. And he is a Funk Brother forever.
We'll continue on. His name is in the history just as much as ours, because he did finish the picture.
Want him to know that we're going out there, and anything we do is going to be for him as well as all the other guys.
Motown's hits play eternal on our radios and in our hearts. Now the men who played those hits have their piece of eternity. And for Benny, James, Eddie, Earl, Robert, Pistol, and Johnny, it was all they ever wanted in the first place.
When you say what about the ones that are not here, we're hurting, but we don't dwell on it. We continue on, we talk like they're not really gone.
We love them to death. Yeah, they'll always be with us.
Was that blueberries?
Yeah, I went on. And to James.
That's my part.
I would say after all this period of time, it's just good to be with the fellas again.
Most thing I miss is just that, like you say, most of the guys being together.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I was so grateful when the first day we met after 30 years, you know, in the basement.
That's right.
You know? That's what I miss mostly about it.
It's the guys.
It's the guys.
I mean, you know, we all got a little gray on us, and I just couldn't put it in the word. I couldn't even speak.
Oh man, it was like a return from the great beyond, actually, because it was just unbelievable. When you look around, everybody came together and we started playing just like we'd been playing all the time.
Unbelievable.
I just felt like, you know, I'm probably gonna cry here in a minute, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I did.
On the pop scene, you had the Beatles, and they were making a traditional, well, not a traditional, but a great change in the sound of music, the feel of music. And on the black scene, you had Motown. It was changing there. The whole music scene was going through a transition at that time. Rock and roll had its own little thing, and rhythm and blues, and yeah, that's right. It was the right time. Everything was, the timing was perfect.
But also the feel and the sound of them crossed over into the pop market, and then white America caught on to the sound as well as black America, and it was. And to me, it was a real feel-good, positive thing.
Barry was shooting dice with us one day, and I couldn't stop hitting. Mickey Stevenson, Barry, and Brian Holland. We were shooting dice, and man, every time I'd come out with 11 or 7. And Barry said, he's done got too lucky. He said, let's play some poker. I said, well, I don't play poker, so I grabbed a fifth of that liquor and poured it in my thing and started drinking. I said, ha ha, I see you fellas. And then Brian said, he's trying to get his money. He ain't back, ain't he?
You remember royalty period, all the producers got their royalty checks. All the hotels was renting out suites because everybody rented a suite and had their personal parties. Well, Barry had one over at his house. And Barry had a cigar box sitting up there full of $100 bills, man, packed. And he was taking all the bets. We beat Barry out of all the money he had on the table. When I was getting ready to go, Barry went upstairs and come back with 2 more shoeboxes. This company's successful.
That's right. They had Cadillacs, pink ones, blue, green, airplanes, all this kind of crap. I said, wait a minute, who's paying for all this stuff, you know? And then it dawned on me, I said, they must be making some money. You know?
Well, the money, I think scale was $24 for 3 tunes, 3 hours rather, 4 tunes when I left Motown, and I think they was getting around about $10 a side, and they was making $56 in 3 hours.
Give Joe a little more one.
Yeah.
The goofiest one was Jamerson tried to tell everybody that his name was Diego Diegerson. Diego in Spanish is James. So he thought, well, Jamerson, if it's James is Diego, then Jamerson is Diegerson.
Okay, his name was Soup. We named him Soup. Because one day we was planning 20 grand, so he said his wife gonna cook a big dinner for us. You know, so everybody all. Well, that's what I thought.
So we go, everybody get off, we hungry, I don't know what. Go by his house and have they're gonna have people lay out there for us. It wasn't, we didn't see nothing. Didn't smell nothing. So he went in there, got talked to the wife, come back to the 8 fellas. All we got is some soup. And we started calling him Soup.
What about what you and Pistol used to call each other?
Oh yeah, my name is since my name is Uriel, and Pistol name was Pistol. I'd be coming to the studio, he'd say, I say, hey Pistol, he'd say, hey Urine.
So Marvin Gaye lost so much money, they found out Jack had 3 dice.
I didn't have 3 dice. They were gambling when I went back there. So I'm looking at them shoot dice, so I made a bet. I saw him switch the dice with the one else in. I saw the way he was betting, so I started betting the way he was betting. And I started winning. I said, I better quit before they discover it. Because he's switching dice real raggedy like. I laid back down up there, I went to sleep. Next thing I know, Marvin said, Jackass, they beat me out of all my money, and I think he had something to do with it. It was Eddie Bongo. He went to Marvin and explained to him what really happened. So Marvin says, well, tell Jack to come on down to the room. I went down there and I got a shag carpet on the floor and a whole shoebox full of weed. Marvin says, Eddie Bongo told me what happened, so you don't have to do, he can stick with the tour, but should have told me that they were cheating. I said, well, I wasn't gonna do that. So Eddie said, you guys shake hands. I said, okay. So I reached over to shake hands with Marvin and knocked the box of weed into the shag carpet. I said, wait a minute, man, don't get mad. Let's go get a vacuum cleaner.
what went on around us outside of playing the instruments?
Well, we had very little lives.
I was so tired in between, I didn't go home.
When we were in between takes, as an example, everybody's sitting in their own little cubicle. Pistol's over here in his cubicle, the drum kits and everything sitting there, and a racetrack for him sitting on top of Tom Tom. Eddie Bongo's over here in his cubicle. I can look through the glass over him. He's reading a magazine, a nudie magazine, and then they count the song off, and the guys are still looking at him just playing. And never miss a beat, you know. They never miss a beat.
I listen to oldies.
Oldies, yeah.
And classical.
I listen to the news.
Yeah. The news is more entertaining.
I look at TV now more so than I listen to the radio.
Motown. What music?
What music? Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
What music?
I listen to everything. Country and western.
Everybody sounds alike. The kids still say, "Oh, Daddy, we know you did this. We know you did that, and everything." It's nothing to them because we don't care because they turn to the rap station. But this is what's happening now, Daddy. This is your music over here now. You know.
We could rap, and we didn't know you could get paid for that stuff. That's right.
Yeah, well.
We started rapping way back there. And sometimes what we call playing the dozens. But we could rap. We could rap.
You feel like a fool, you know. You want to mention these tunes to somebody. If they're younger than you, they're not going to believe you anyway. You just can't make, my thought, you just can't make nobody believe it. What's the point of trying?
They don't even know you're alive. I'm sorry to say that.
I taught piano theory and composition, and I would do certain things and teach the kids certain things, and I said, well, oh, yeah, I played on this record, I played on this record. The kids would look at me and they say, well, what are you doing in here teaching us? If you played on all those records, but what are you doing in here teaching us?
Well, the first time I saw the movie, I thought it was great. Of course, I wanted to see more of myself, but it was good. Can't get enough of me.
In fact, I was the only one who went to New York for the Tribeca Film Festival. When I heard the sound, I damn near slipped out of my chair. I said, you gotta be kidding me.
Look here, Benny said to me before Earl Van Dyke found him when he died, he said, y'all gonna get y'all's. He said that to me, and this ain't no lie. He said, you're gonna get yours one day.
It's a family. I never had any brothers. These guys they're really like brothers. Al, Jack, Joe, I call him Yosef, and Eddie, and Earl, Babbitt, and Father Joe, Pops.
Each one of those guys that are gone now was a character within himself. Because there are times when I get flashbacks from these cats. I can hear Jamerson just like he was sitting across that table. Bongo. No one sounded like Bongo. No matter how successful we get, no matter how much we achieve financially, we will always be anchored to reality by the sound of their voices telling us what we should do. He may have taken the bodies, but the spirits are still with us and will always be.
The way I feel about it, the greatest thing that's happening is, Joe just said it, Robert didn't make it across the finish line.
Don't get emotional.
But neither did Jamerson.
Yeah.
Neither did Benny, neither did Eddie, neither did Earl. And now Pistol's gone. Now, people are going to know about Earl. People are going to know more about Robert. People are going to know more about Jamerson. If we wouldn't have been able to do this, and there was no film, I mean, it's incredible, Alan. Man.
It's been a wonderful life. I've got wonderful children, wonderful grandchildren. I have relatively good health, and I know how to take care of business.
Well, I'm thankful too because I made it through this rat race, which we call the entertainment business.
I wouldn't change anything. That's for my personal. I wouldn't change anything.
We are brothers. As the song said, we are family. And that's what, we are brothers.
Well, Here's to all you guys, man. And to James,
Hip, hip.
Benny, Earl, Robert, Eddie, and Pistol.
And I love every one of you. I love every one of you.
Same here.
Here's to you guys.
On behalf of the city, we congratulate the Funk Brothers.
I love it, all the attention.
I really love what's going on, you know.
It's a dream now.
I'm still dreaming too.
I'm not sure if it's hit me yet.
It's fantastic.
It feels fabulous to finally get our properties.
Standing in the Shadows of Motown was released in November of 2002, over 35 years after Motown scored its earliest hits. With the release of the film came a deluge of publicity for the Funk Brothers, a group of men who had long since given up on their hopes for a shot at the spotlight.
When I semi-retired, I just laid back and said, well, this is it.
We always thought, well, hey, we're gonna go move to Florida, or we're gonna hang out on the beach and everything, you know. We're gonna retire.
But a remarkable series of events brought Uriel, Jack, Johnny, Pistol, Joe Hunter, Joe Messina, Bob, and Eddie out of obscurity. Only through fate did they get a taste of the kind of fame that for years had only been reaped on the vocalists of the songs they styled.
They're like unsung heroes, sort of, and it must be just amazing to have it finally happen.
After a while, that hits you every day. And then I start practicing signing my autograph. I said, this is next after this, boy. This is gonna be autograph time.
Back in Detroit in the 60s, the Funk Brothers weren't looking for glory. They were studio musicians looking to make a living. What they didn't realize at the time was that they were also making a legend.
We weren't really interested in that at the time. It was just, well, number one, it was a job, and number two, it was a chance of expression.
Motown's glory era eventually wound down. But while the Funk Brothers went away, the hits never did. The legacy and glory of the Motown sound had somehow evaded the Funk Brothers, the very musicians who had created that sound.
I can only speak for myself. I was just so delighted to do my passion and get paid for it.
But I think they need to know the names of the Funk Brothers that were on that music. That's what I think.
That might never have happened if it weren't for Alan Slutsky, a musician researching the Motown sound. When he met James Jamerson's widow in 1986, he learned the untold plight of the Funks.
I just related to their story of, the fact that they had given so much to the world and got nothing back.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2.
Alan met the rest of the Funk Brothers and became friendly with them. He wrote a book about them called Standing in the Shadows of Motown and introduced them to a filmmaker friend of his named Paul Justman.
I realized that these men had played on what I call the soundtrack of my life, and I didn't know who they were, and that blew my mind.
Alan Slutsky's fascination with the unsung Motown masters grew into an obsession. He made it his life's work and exhausted his life savings to get a film made about the Funk Brothers.
I guess everybody has a crusade somewhere in their life that they pick up for, maybe a charity, maybe whatever, and this is the one I picked.
Alan, being the type of person he is, we were convinced that he had an opportunity because he was so enthusiastic, had a concept. We sucked us right on in.
As time was going by, the excitement and the enthusiasm kind of started to dwindle, and we were wondering if it was ever going to happen.
But Alan's resolve was relentless. And in 2000, principal photography was finally about to begin on the Funk Brothers movie with Paul Justman directing. Getting ready for production, the old Soul Brothers reunited after decades of not seeing each other.
I'm Joe Hunter. Joe Hunter.
The men who were sitting retired on their porches were now back in the studio, sitting behind their instruments.
It was real scary at first, you know, because when we come in the first day of rehearsal, man, I was all nervous. I was saying to myself, man, this is going to sound like mess.
When the band got together to play, it just clicked right away. Just everything gelled.
I was surprised. After a couple of days, it was something to listen to, you know.
Filming took place over the course of 6 weeks, and another 6 months later, each brother received a video copy of the movie and an itinerary of their publicity tour schedule.
I just kept looking at it, you know, over and over and over.
4 times I looked at it to believe, you know, in order to convince me that it was real.
To their amazement, before they knew it, the Motown Masters were back on the road. Only this time, they were the headliners.
We're talking to each other, say, is this real? To make sure that what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling is this not me. And they were saying the same thing that I was saying.
I hope it means that there's some redemption, that there's some victory, that there's some joy, that there's... I know they enjoyed making the film.
Now I'm getting my face to go with the music. Before it was just the music out there, you know.
The men in the shadows were now in the sun. They were now being interviewed, swarmed by the press, recognized for their genius, and revered by a new generation. And they were having the time of their lives.
But you know what? I love it. I do. I'm ready for it. And I know these guys are.
We know this didn't have to happen. And so we're so appreciative of what happened.
Right now, I'm up on top. Whatever you name, I'm on top of it.
The beautiful part about the Funk Brothers is that these guys are here. These guys are here to see this film come to life.
Against all odds, after years of being neglected, the Funk Brothers' legacy is now assured. No longer will music lovers ignore the sound that gives Motown its very soul. And for the men whose music has been the soundtrack of our lives, that heartbeat of recognition is the sweetest sound of them all.
I'm going to enjoy it. My wife's going to enjoy it. And whatever happens, it's a wonderful feeling, man.